なんでしょうか。どれにしようかな。どれにしようかな。何を置こうかな。何を置こうかな。何がいいかな。
Hello there everybody, I hope you are well. It's Mikey Mega here, and today we've got something slightly different. This is my first ever How to Draw Anime Girls tutorial. So I want to say thank you very much for your feedback on this. This is what you wanted to see, this is what you're going to get. So no complaints. But if you've just got standard printed it's absolutely fine. I would encourage you to get yourself some paper and a pencil at home and see if you can kind of join along at a similar pace. Paper makes, pencil, HB, as you can see it's just a cheap pad I've got full of these things, so nothing special there. Very useful as well. You've got a picture of pencil, number 2 a hand, so if you've never held anything before, that's also useful. Just to give you a bit of background on this, I thought I'd quickly put this together, hope it makes sense. In that people tend to measure human bodies by the amount of heads that they are. If you watch any other tutorials, you'll probably see this coming up as well. A standard adult female character might be a rough. Here's the measurement of one of their heads, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 more on top of that. However, what I like to do, or if you just want to keep them cuter or make them younger, so I keep cute girls a max about 7 heads high, just like this one. You might go even lower if you want to make them cuter than that. Let's get that out of the way. So to crack on, with that blocking out process, I'm going to draw 2 characters. One I'll have slightly to the front but an angle, and I'll do the same. I'll have another slightly behind to an angle. So I'm going to work out roughly where I want to start with the head. That's usually how I begin these things. And I'm going to get the circle going. What I'm going to do is try to draw these circles a little bit darker than I usually would in real life. So hopefully it's going to show up on the camera phone a little bit better. So I'm starting with a circle here. Follow the imaginary spine for a start. Imagine roughly how this character is. This character is going to be facing to the left, slightly away from us. And once I've got a rough head shape in, I'm going to think about where the middle is. That's going to be roughly down here. Drop some lines off the edge of the circle. The rest of his face. In here. So we can draw a line from about here. It might not make perfect sense at the moment. But basically, this will be the cheek, the jaw, the face, and this kind of circle. This ellipse represents a circle. Now, after I draw a line in, to kind of show it, the next step for me is putting in some lines to represent the angle of the shoulders. So I've got a strong line coming here, and then another for the angle of the hips. Another one coming here. And a good rule of thumb to keep the balance right is shoulders. You want the hips generally to be slightly at the opposite angle as well. Because it just makes it kind of curvier and roundier. It's a great move to do. So now we can start actually blocking out this body. I've got my head, then I'm going to start with the top of the torso, and for that I've got this kind of elliptical shape where it's going to slightly represent the rib cage. So I'm going to have something like this. Hope you can see that. And then I'm going to have a much smaller circle or smaller partition area that's going to represent the middle of the torso and the abdomen at the front. using this guiding line that I've just drawn to kind of keep an idea of where the body's going. And then the best part, the hips, that's going to be, if you imagine, a flatter, inverted version of this, which is going to come out nice and wide. Never be shy with the hips. And then it's going to all meet together in an angle like this. So you can see I've got this kind of flattened, truncated shape here. So it's already giving you an idea as to the very basics of how this character is forming. What I'm going to now start to do is actually use some more lines to represent the limbs. So if my shoulder starts about here, I'm going to want to have the arm come here, and then I'm going to want to have the arm kind of go off away from us at an angle over there. So I'm going to have a nice circle for the shoulder. Again, this is how we're blocking everything out. I'm going to have a nice circle for the elbow, which is really useful, and a nice thin ellipse, which is going to be the wrist, because this arm is foreshortened as it's going away. And then I'm going to do the same over here. I want the arm to go down here off the side of the hips. So I'm going to have a nice circle for this shoulder. You can see it's just behind the torso anyway. Another one here for the joint at the elbow, and then that's going off, so I don't need to draw a hand down there. And I'm going to be doing a very similar thing for the legs. In this case, both the legs are going to kind of fall off the bottom of this sheet of paper. Just by the size I've made the head, I already know kind of what size we're going to be having for the rest of the body and how far it's going to go off. But just use that guide I showed you earlier to give you an idea. So one leg's going to go off here, and then one leg's going to go more straight down here, so that she's kind of standing at a jaunty angle. And then I'm going to be making a nice kind of rounded semicircle to represent where this is joining. So it's kind of joining up here. This would be the bum, here and here. And so we just come right off that, keep the curves. We've got leg number 1 about there, and leg number 2 is going to be coming in probably about here. Cool. So I'm just going to fill in the neck and bring that down as more of a line. It's going to certainly come up in here as well. And then for the arms, we're going to just quickly join this together. So gentle curving lines just to bring all this in. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it gives you a good starting point. And then as you draw harder lines on top, then you can use that to actually reshape it as you see fit. So here's our foreshortened arm. It's going to be a challenge. And then we're going to have a hand over here. So I'm going to just make out the rough middle part of the hand. Have a little lump over here for where the thumb joint is. Flick a thumb off of it. And then just pop in some knuckle joints. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 for the knuckles. I'm going to hide the bottom 2. And this character is going to be doing that kind of standard anime thing where they go, oh hey, cheese. So one finger off there, and one finger off there. Hope that doesn't look too freaking weird. So this arm as well, we're going to join it up. Keep those gentle curves. And then we're going to worry a bit more about the head. So now we've got our first character facing away from us, but turning back and looking on itself. As for the head bit, to map out where we're going to keep the eyes, we're going to put a line about halfway through, so it follows where the top of the ear meets the face, and comes round for the rest of the head. And then I'm going to use this to kind of help map out where everything goes in the face itself. So big anime eyes, we're going to use this kind of middle portion here to create a nice kind of curve, kind of whatever we want. It's going to be a very kind of cute sort of character there. And we're going to pop in massive ellipses for the eyes, big ellipses. So I'm starting with the top kind of hood of the eye, just maybe marking a bottom bit and sticking an ellipse in there. And then, because it's at an angle, I'm going to do a similar but much thinner version, approximately in this gap here that I've made between the centre line and the top of that lid. So this one's going to come right down in here. Mark off the bottom, it's approximately there, and then draw in this other eye. So it's going to come through like that. Excellent. All I need then is to stick in a nose. So here's the area between the eyes. I'm going to make it cute, so the nose is going to go right up in there. And then she's going to be all big and excited mouth, some kind of massive grin, massive smile. There we go, something like that. And that's the very basic blocking out and placing of this character. So what I'm going to be doing now is go for the old sex sells addish and give this character some really big boobs, which are just basically circles. So go below the shoulder line. See, I've drawn these shoulder circles in. I'm going to have another line here, and then off of here I'm going to draw two big kind of drooping circle bags, or boobs as they're called. That's the technical term. Because this is off from the side, we're only going to get a bit of sweet side boob. But you get the point already. All of a sudden it's gone from a kind of standard girl to a boom, a boing type character. Excellent. Right.
Nak beli tiket bas. 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 Mana nak beli tiket bas?
So, let's get another one in. Now we've got one from behind. We'll have one from in front. Oops, said the vicar. So, again, I'm going to start off with a little bit higher up. I'm going to draw a slightly taller character, maybe just a touch older. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with a nice circle for where I'm going to have the head going. Let's just get this in. Something like that. Again, drawing much darker than I usually would, so that you can see it. I'm going to have the middle of the face go down here. So again, it's at a slight angle. And once more, just dropping a line off. Once this line meets about the same level as the bottom of the circle, I'm then curving that in to meet the bottom of the centre line, so that's where the chin is, and then bringing it back up on the other side, not perfectly the same because it is at a bit of an angle, and then popping an ear around about there. So to follow this pattern again, I'm going to have a line from the top of the ear. You can see that the bottom half is where I'm containing most of the face, although any eyebrows and things like that, they can start appearing right at the top or anywhere else, depending on the character's expression. So this one, she's going to be not having half as much as fun as this one. This one's got big boobs, she's having a great day. This one's going to have smaller boobs and be a bit moody about it. Just playing God really, that's fine. So her eyes are going to be a little bit lower. Let's come around to these hoods. Drop in some nice big ellipses again. And you'll notice, just like with this one, because the head's at an angle, this eye's coming much further into the right and it's a little bit thinner than this eye here. And it gives that impression, which is kind of looking ever so slightly across her own nose here towards us, which is exactly what we want. So this one, we're going to have a nose a little bit further, around about here. What I'd recommend is make yourself a face and then draw in the features, rub them out, draw them in again. Have a play and see how you feel about where everything is. And she's going to be going, oh, I can't believe it. Oh, my chest is going to be ever so slightly clouded. That's not cool, Mikey Mega Mega. Live with it. What can I say? So, let's get this body going. It's going to be, again, running from the spine, so the back of the head is about here. And then you'll notice that a human's back is out ever so slightly by the shoulder blades. And if your posture is good, it's going to curve in towards the waist. And then kind of pops out again for the hips. So, following that, we're going to run some shoulders in, or some shoulder lines. This is going to be a fairly level posture. So, across there, and because these ones are level, it means we can keep the hips level as well. Because it's not going at an angle, we don't need to counterbalance it with another angle. Hope that makes sense. So, let's put the neck in. Nice gentle line for the moment. We'll talk about all these other bits and sort of how they work together, perhaps in another episode. So cheeky neckline there, and then I'm going to once again go with a very vague torso shape. So I'm creating this very flat circular edge for the top of the shoulders, and then I'm going to replicate very roughly the shape of the rib cage, which is going to come around here and then back up around here. Having done that, we're going to do the abdomen area, which is going to be a bit of a straighter line here, because she's going to have a flatter stomach, and then that curves in there. So if you imagine the abdomen itself is a walled area that is roughly this shape. However, I'm worrying about that space just by bringing a line down here and then another line down here. Then we've got our hips bit. So once again, we're going to bring a line off here and create this kind of nice, generous curved area here and here. Now it's coming out more of a curve on this side because it's not perfectly centre on, remember. So this is bringing out some of that curve of the bum on the right, whereas this is just going over the hip bone itself. And then just bring that all in around about here. Cool. So once again, we're going to be putting in the limbs. So if we're going to have an arm on this side, it might say come down to here and then just hang casually here in a hand. And then on here we'll have the arm come out a little bit and again just kind of pop off to the side and wrist. So we're going to add in some shoulder circles just like before. We're going to add in a circle for the joints and a circle for where the wrist is, and just like I've done on here, once again we're going to have a shoulder circle. And you'll notice they're not perfect circles, but it's okay. A circle for the joint at the elbow, and then a thinner ellipse for where the wrist is going to be. And we're once again just going to join those up gently with these curves. You notice this bump I kind of put in around about here for the forearm, just to kind of mimic that shape. And then same here, curve kind of here, sort of there, and then comes out a bit for the forearm near the shoulder joint, and then works its way down. And then for the legs, these are going to be both, this one's going to go kind of down and back a bit, and this one's going to be just stepping forward ever so slightly, barely that you'd see it, but enough for us just to kind of pop that line in. So we're going to follow these curves. Here's the kind of joint to the hip, and then this one is just curving so slightly back with that step. Cool. So we're not going to worry about a massive hands tutorial either today, so I'm just going to quickly put in the main part of the hand, the centre. I always kind of draw these little bits for the knuckles because it helps me personally place everything. Remember, this tutorial is my own personal method. This might not be the best method. Other people out there might know some great tricks. So go talk to them, if anything. But do leave your feedback or questions in the comments below. I will endeavour to answer them. So here I'm just going to have that one, thumb's going to go there somewhere, and then fingers are going to roll off. Don't need to worry about it, it's mostly hidden there, but it gives you the idea of what's going on. So remember, this one was slightly unhealthy. Pop this in a little bit more, because she has not got massive boobs. So I'm going to go below these shoulder lines again, and let's give it just a little something something. So quite large boobs if you're a person in real life. But we'll just go for fairly medium with anime. So I'm going to put the front centre of the chest line in. It's going to help me balance everything. And then pop in some circles here. Like so. And then we're going to have another one over here as well. Like so. Okay. Now what I like to do is create a tuck line that goes back to the shoulder. That just helps with understanding how they hang a little bit in artistic terms, but not really a problem for this. We're keeping it fairly simple. So everybody, there you have it. You've got some basic framework as to how these two anime girl figures stand together. You understand how they've been put together with some shapes, or at least I hope you found it helpful. And now I'm going to go into the time-lapse side of things. I'm actually going to speed it up, add some hair and details and clothes, and then I'll see you at the very end when you're going to hopefully have two lovely ladies looking at you. But they're not real, so, you know, watch it. It's just
Mikey, mega, 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 yeah. Boom, Mikey, mega, Mike.
on the tutorials I should say, playlist link, which with any luck will be on screen around about now. So here's my shoulder line just to get a bit of weight in. Maybe I'm going to have the hips line to this character right down there, probably going to disappear off the page, and I just want them to have a nice big midriff section just so that I can use this to accentuate where we're going to have our wet shirt design. Now I'm just getting in the chest area, which again is our big elliptical shape, just like so. And what we might do is we might use one of our original characters, one of our OC elves, to get this one coming off quite nicely. Oh, and that just reminds me, I need to close the competition on Amino for posting your OC characters for me to draw, but that's another thing for another time. And then down on this bottom half, of course, we've got that separate section where the hips and that whole area all comes up into the body like so. And I'm just going to show the sweep of where the thighs and stuff connects to the middle of the torso area, just like usual. And again, we've even got tutorials on how to draw torsos for your anime and manga characters, so don't be shy. Here's a circle for one of our shoulders. Here's a circle for the other one. And then just down in the middle here, you're going to have the rest of the body joining up like so. Those hips, of course, have a relatively hard edge over the outside, just about here and just about here, so you can really get some nice curve and sway to your character. And over the chest, I'm going to have a relatively busty character, just so that we can really get into the niches and knots of where everything's wet and where everything clings, and where it doesn't, of course. And then the rest of our character's legs probably off of there. Equally, I'm going to have an arm down and an arm across situation, because this is going to be quite a busty character, so we're going to just hold off on a few bits, or at least get a few bits to... In fact, let's have this arm here and then drop slightly down this way, just so that I can get the hand to drop off around about here. And again, this isn't a hand tutorial, so I'm not going to ask for too many of you to turn a blind eye to the deformed digits that we have at the end of the arms. But let's just get a limb up here, a limb out here, and again I'm just trying to get this as drawn as possible using our basic shapes, just so we can actually crack on and talk about the wet material. But this is also an important part of the process as well. So we get the elbow out there, sweep that forearm here and here like so, and then on this side maybe we're going to have the arm slightly out, so it's not supporting any of the boob and stuff, but maybe actually coming a little bit towards us, so it's slightly foreshortened, and then going a little bit straight back up, so we've got another hand doing something near the face. That's usually a good point, just to make sure you're not hiding the hands of your anime and manga characters. Do make sure that they're doing stuff. You've assigned them like a role and a purpose, because if you hide hands, people can always tell. Even though this is not a hand tutorial and we're not here to witch hunt people that like to hide hands just as much as I do. So now I'm just going to really quickly map out the boobs on this character, just in this chest cavity zone here. Again, normally I'd be making this a lot darker for you guys to see at home, but that's not the main focus of today. And that is just going to probably bulge out a bit here before sitting back over on this side, relatively large like so, and then really similar here, but swinging down a little bit more because there's less propping up from this arm. Underneath is another big boob, a little bit of bulge, just like so. So you can see where one is being ever so slightly more managed upwards in terms of its weight. It's almost like a great big flour and water filled balloon, so it's just squeezing a little bit more sideways and evening out with a pull of gravity, whereas this one is ever so slightly hanging a little bit more and going a bit further down. But basically there's our basics in, there's our character to actually now map some things onto. So I always like to start off shirts wet or dry from the top and maybe just get a little bit of the collar in, and then the rest of our character can really have all of this shirt material hanging down. So usually just have the top of your collar line where that's going to be on a character. Obviously this is like an office lady look that we're going to be giving this particular one, and then the collar can be up there somewhere. And then in terms of the tie, and I think I'm going to be giving this female character a slightly masculine tie, but that's absolutely fine. It matches in with a design we did for one of our other characters a little bit earlier as well, so I think this is going to work out great. And I'm going to have this tie just rumple down and rumple all over this kind of boob area of the shirt as well, where it's going to be just kicking out and sticking forward. So I'm just showing it a bit more up here, and then just coming down off the front, and probably hanging just over that arm as well. So I'm just going to have it hang just over the front here, but also on the underside we've got the second part of the tie, something like so. Okay, so in terms of mapping out the shirt area, what I'm really thinking about, and I'm just going to turn this over really quickly to talk about it, is, oh look, here's a character from a completely different tutorial at some point. It's basically areas of where you might have these just kind of odd abstract circle shapes drawn all together. And what these abstract things are doing are basically saying that here's some material which is flat on against the skin, and here's some material which is all crunched up, it's a fold, and therefore it's more opaque and you're not going to be able to see through it. So that's kind of what we're thinking about when we are, wait, what on earth have I done? Here we go. Much better, guys. When we are mapping out the wet areas on a character. So the first main bits are going to be the boobs themselves, and where they're on the outside edge, they're going to be pulling on the shirt. The shirt's pulling everything together across the middle. That's where the taut pressure is going to be, which means you're going to get some slightly more flatter on against the skin areas to the outer curves, which means that's where you're going to see things a little bit more see-through versus opaque. So what I like to do to kind of describe this and understand this is go ahead and on the outside edge, just start to map in a little bit of a sharp line around here, and then just start to sweep up lots of curving triangles in different directions to map out where it's a bit more opaque. So again, I'm just going to try to keep these lines relatively sharp so that they do hopefully show up for you guys, just like this. And we're going to talk our way around and map our way through like that. In fact, I'm going to see, bear with me guys, I'm going to see if I can get you any zoom. That is about as much as I'm going to. We're in digital zoom town, so it might not look great, guys. But what I'm basically thinking of is that I've got all these kind of circular shapes here, there, and all sorts, plus some very sharp lines showing where everything's going to be also very taut. And I'm always thinking about these things as solid geometric blobs of some sort. So I've got this blob around the outside edge, which is going to be opaque. Most of this inside area is actually going to be relatively see-through because of the pressure of the boobs against the wet shirt material. And I'm just going to start to follow the curve of the body, but just zigzag in a few more of these kind of pointing shapes to show again where the material is actually relatively tight and taut. And then this whole shown area against the skin is probably just going to map to that much of the boobs before everything's pulling over the top. Then of course I've got my tie up here. I'm going to quite possibly let this tie go for the sake of a nice clear tutorial on just the shirt alone, my friends. So here we go, we did need a rubber after all. Who would have thought it? Let's just get that all out the way. And we could go super lewd and get this shirt open like we've done with another character recently, and I think that's probably going to be our winning way to go. So, as well as the pull across here from one boob to another, guys, you can imagine that we've got just the odd 1 or 2 buttons undone in this situation, which is also further pulling things out and across, before obviously coming back to a point where these buttons are done up. So I'm going to take up this big opened diamond of space about here and about here in our shirt, and I'm going to just show again how this even is kind of mapping over a big curved surface, and it's sort of having to represent that for us as it goes up and around. That means, just for the sake of fun, I can have this tie hold up around here and then basically just disappear down between the boobs, which always keeps things a little bit more interesting. So I'm just going to get this tie to just come out and disappear back up towards the top like so. Then obviously we've got this part of the boob squeezing in here, and then I think maybe we might catch a bit of a tie in there, but we're otherwise never going to see it again under that shirt. So then on this side as well, we might have very similar things where I'm just starting to draw these very light abstract circles, but really they're telling me that there's parts of the shirt material here which are or aren't under stress and pressure. And then just like so here, Now, because we've got things buttoned up around about this point, these areas are going to be indeed just pulling on the material again, showing that there's stress and pressure. And really I'm just going to speed up now and just kind of go up around the outside edge. So if we go around about here, I'm imagining this much of the boob on this side to probably be through the see-through area. So all of the rest of it is going to be the slightly more opaque material pulling against things. So might have a little rise there. I might have this entire zone just mapped out with another curve up here. That might allow me to just start to put a few bits on this edge, and then right around the outside edge of this curve as well, just like so, and on the underside of that around about here, just like so, and a few relatively straight lines pulling up that area there and on this side as well. Then up on here, loads of areas of concentrated folds into the armpit. So this is actually pulling out across like so. You can get your abstract shapes right in here, right out across towards the shoulder as well, if you want to, and right up in here. And I'm both thinking about lines of material which fold and go across the chest, but also I'm thinking about those slightly more abstract patches of the skin where, okay, this material is going to be really tight on, really doing its own thing against the slightly flatter skin. And on the outside edge, I'm going to just show where those ruffles and folds are actually just protruding up away from the surface of the skin, as they are actually that shirt material. And then round on this side, we've got a load of opportunity again for wet shirt just to be folded up there, and then quite a few relatively straightforward looking lines that sweep up towards where the wrist is for this character. Then we've got a relatively starchy cuff, so that's always going to be a bit more solid. And then on this side as well, slightly more starchy cuff again. This is like a very good anchor point that I can start to work back from. And then maybe the area just around here is still fairly large and loose for when you've got a lot of material on the arm, but the rest of it is still stuck to the arm itself. You can see where all of this is kind of doing its own thing, having very much that wet look throughout. So again, just getting it a little bit like that, just so that it maps really well. And then the last bit is just up on here. So again, I've got a few lines coming out from the edge here and here. The rest is mapping up into these very wet designs that we've generally got. And then right up here, I'm actually just going to drop down the line for where the top